I am Ashley Banfield, and this is Drop Dead Serious.
We have major updates on the disappearance of Lynette Hooker, the woman missing and feared dead in the Bahamas. It has been 5.5 weeks since her husband spun his elaborate story, claiming she fell off the back of their dinghy into incredibly rough waters. But our investigation has uncovered deep evidence that completely shatters Brian Hooker's version of events. In fact, it exposes him as a total liar. If he lied about this tragic accident, especially when video footage reveals the ocean was actually calm, what else is he hiding?
Today, at the Coast Guard station in Fort Pierce,
Florida, we watched federal agents board his sailing vessel, Soulmate, and spend hours down below. For more than 3 hours, investigators moved in and out, searching deep below deck for over 3 hours.
Our sources were watching closely, recording video and taking aerial photos of the scene.
And they carried off some highly significant items. Investigators carted away a massive amount of physical evidence. We watched them pack items into evidence bags at a processing table set up right on the dry dock, so they could quickly catalog all of the forensic material they were taking off the ship. This yacht is now an active crime scene, and we can finally say that officially.
Yellow police tape now stretches all the way around the entire perimeter of the boat.
It is clearly visible whether you look from the water or from the air. The Soulmate is officially impounded as a crime scene at the Fort Pierce Coast Guard base. In short, what this means is, Brian, you are not getting your boat back. Probably never, in my opinion. There are strict protocols regarding the seizure of evidence. We all have Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable searches and seizures, but the key word in this situation is unreasonable. Once investigators establish clear evidentiary value, those search warrants get extended. They can keep it. I can guarantee you that whichever federal judge signed off on the warrant to seize this boat intends for it to be held all the way through trial. Absolutely, because it is a crime scene. We might even see a jury step on board for a physical walkthrough later, though we cannot say for certain just yet. Here is the major caveat. Brian Hooker has not actually been charged with any crime. But the walls are definitely closing in on him, especially when federal agents intercept your boat offshore and tow it in. We have obtained exclusive photos of the Coast Guard, bringing that vessel straight into the harbor, right to the Coast Guard docks. They basically intercepted it out at sea. A couple of hired crew members, a captain and mate paid to sail the vessel back to the United States, got the absolute shock of their lives. Suddenly, it was like being pulled over on the highway, except they were out on open water. The Coast Guard rolled up with flashing lights, sirens wailing, and a booming loudspeaker. Look, we are boarding your boat. You are the United States Coast Guard, and that is exactly what went down, right? When they seize a vessel, that is how it goes. So these guys, man, what a brutal 24 hours for them. Hope they got paid up front. But it is probably worse for Brian, who was waiting to reclaim his home, the vessel where he lived for 4 years on board Soulmate with his long-suffering wife, Lynette. Meanwhile, where is she? That is the ultimate question. Where is Lynette Hooker? Because she did not just tumble off the back of your dinghy. So where is she? Right now, only a few people know the truth. God is one of them. But here is what we uncovered today. We learned that because yellow tape surrounds that boat, it is officially an active crime scene. We watched it happen. We saw federal agents boarding the vessel, going back and forth, and hauling boxes of evidence off that boat. And we watched them processing everything. Today, we even saw them photographing that crime scene. That exact scene. Mind you, this criminal investigation has been active for 5 weeks. The story Brian is telling is that something happened to Lynette, 1,000 yards away on the dinghy, and they never returned to Soulmate. And he drifted all the way to Marsh Harbor, 4 miles away. So why is Soulmate wrapped in yellow crime scene tape right now? If Brian claims they never even got close to the main boat, I bet it is, because federal investigators do not buy his story. It is a crime scene because they suspect something went down right on board Soulmate, not out on the dinghy. They suspect that Brian is flat out lying.
And so I keep repeating, tick-tock.
Tick-tock, Brian Hooker. The feds play by a very different set of rules. You probably know this. If you follow true crime, you know the drill.
But let me catch everyone else up to speed real quick. When federal agents take over a major criminal investigation,
they line up every single piece of evidence before they indict or charge, lock them up, deal with the whole bail process and everything else.
With state cases, you often see suspects arrested quickly, just like Brian Koberger, who was locked up about 2.5 months after the quadruple murder at the University of Idaho, right?
And then prosecutors built the case over the next 2.5 years.
and things only wrapped up when he finally accepted a plea deal.
But the feds operate differently.
They build their case first. They do not just grab you, lock you up, and then start doing their research, trying to piece together a case for trial. Federal prosecutors are usually ready for trial the moment they make an arrest.
They are incredibly confident in their evidence and investigative work.
And look, if you are facing a federal indictment, make plans. Tell your family to move on without you, because over 95% of the time, they secure a conviction. The federal government does not play around. They simply do not. Every single detail is locked down, fully organized, and in place. So my leading theory is that because the soulmate is wrapped in police tape, investigators believe a crime actually took place there. That is the spot where a crime occurred. Not just a tragic, unexplained disappearance, but something far darker. The soulmate is a crime scene. You can spot it from the air, and you can see it from the water.
It is right there. Honestly, I think we all suspected it.
But actually seeing it changes everything. Today, we are going to look closely at two major developments.
First, we have an incredibly emotional talk with Lynette Hooker's mother, Darlene.
And Darlene Hamlet has lived through absolute hell over the last 5 or more weeks. Initially, she was simply told that her daughter was missing. Then, complete silence. Not a single word from Brian Hooker, the very husband who claims a tragedy struck his family, yet chose to say nothing to his wife's relatives. So, how do you think that makes a grieving mother feel? Imagine how that silence makes Lynette's own daughter feel. Carly Aylesworth has faced that same stone-cold silence from Brian, too. It is highly suspicious behavior for a husband claiming his wife was lost in a terrible boating accident in the Bahamas. You would expect him to be mourning alongside her loved ones. Instead, total silence for 5 weeks.
So I sat down with Darlene to ask her about that silence.
But that's not all. Darlene also revealed things about the night everything supposedly went down. Critical pieces of information that I had absolutely no idea about until today. These are brand new parts of his story, and frankly, they do not add up. Starting with exactly what he was wearing on his feet, because that detail clashes with his claims of what occurred. Then there is his path after washing ashore. Apparently, he did not head straight for the shipyard.
He made several stops along the way.
She is going to walk us through all of it, and it is chilling.
I also uncovered a crucial new detail concerning the emergency flares he claims to have fired.
And yes, Darlene has some key insights about those flares too.
We will share that exclusive conversation with Darlene in just a few moments. Darlene also provided us with some deeply moving photos from her personal family album. Images of her daughter and granddaughter.
These beautiful personal photos truly capture Lynette's full spirit, not just the simple snapshots of her boating life with Brian that we have all seen.
Some of the memories that Darlene was kind enough to share show us a completely different side of Lynette, far removed from the headlines. We see her as a happy young girl alongside her brother, just growing up like we all did, enjoying those simple, innocent moments of childhood with family. There is also a touching photo of Lynette standing next to her father on her wedding day.
To be clear, I do not think this was her wedding to Brian.
Though it is possible, since she and Brian were together for decades.
Either way, seeing her share such a joyful moment with her dad is incredibly moving.
Then there are some wonderful skiing photos from years ago.
We see Lynette on skis with her mother, perhaps in Michigan or somewhere similar. Just pure, warm moments of a truly happy family. A wealth of photographs also captures Lynette right alongside her daughter, Carly, in beautiful multi-generational family photos that show a deep, lasting connection. You see, a grandmother and granddaughter are left stranded, missing the vital generation in between, and the single most important person in both of their lives, Lynette Hooker. That makes finding Lynette an absolute urgent priority. Yes, this mystery demands answers, and whoever is responsible must face justice. But first and foremost, we have to find Lynette. And keep in mind, it was just her 29th birthday.
For Carly Ellsworth last week.
You would expect a stepfather who raised her since she was 3 years old to be a part of that milestone, or at least reach out to say, I don't know, happy birthday? Total silence. Absolutely nothing. That simply does not sound like an innocent man's behavior. If his alibi actually held up, he would be a grieving victim seeking his family's comfort, not a man going completely off the grid, shutting them out forever. It is incredibly suspicious. As mentioned earlier, I had the chance to sit down with Darlene today. This conversation took place just days after Mother's Day. And if you watched our previous coverage, you know the Coast Guard delivered Darlene an unexpected Mother's Day development. They executed a search and seizure warrant on the 46-foot sailing vessel owned by Brian and Lynette Hooker, their boat, Soulmate. Intercepted right off the Florida coast, the vessel was towed directly to a military dock, where it is currently impounded, allowing investigators to begin a deep forensic analysis, building a potential case against Brian Hooker. I reached out to Darlene to find out first how she processed that massive update. Second, how she is holding up 5 weeks into this agonizing nightmare. And finally, what she makes of the fact that Brian has completely vanished. A quick word from our sponsor. Spring always brings a desire to make our living spaces softer, more peaceful, turning our bedrooms into a sanctuary where we actually want to land after a stressful day. And for me, quality bedding completely sets the tone. If your bed sheets are rough, trap heat, or lack comfort, it ruins your sleep instantly. That is why I highly recommend Cozy Earth. Their signature sheets are crafted from bamboo viscose, making them incredibly soft, breathable, and temperature regulating, keeping you wonderfully cool and cozy all night long. Even better, they offer a 100-night trial and a 10-year warranty. Honestly, I am actually wearing one of their premium hoodies right now, and I absolutely love it. It features a classic waffle knit design, but it feels incredibly soft and cozy. So head over to CozyEarth.com and use my code BANFIELD to save up to 20% off your order. If you get a quick survey after ordering, do me a huge favor. Let them know you heard about Cozy Earth right here on our show. Because your home should not just be a space, it should be a feeling.
Experience real comfort with Cozy Earth.
Darlene, it has been a couple of weeks since we last connected, and what an unbelievable difference those weeks have made. A lot has changed, yes. The biggest development is that Lynette and Brian's boat, named Soulmate, is now officially in United States Coast Guard custody. That had to be a massive relief for you to hear.
It felt like a Mother's Day gift. It was truly wonderful.
Yeah. How closely are you keeping up with this investigation, as far as they let you? As much as I possibly can. I actually get most of my updates from the podcast, mostly from you. Plus, the Coast Guard calls with quick updates here and there, so that is basically it. Oh my goodness, absolutely, yeah. It is always reassuring when federal investigators actually remember the families, the loved ones who are desperately waiting for any kind of news. I am really thankful that the Coast Guard Investigative Service is keeping you informed.
How does it feel knowing they are unloading so much evidence from that vessel?
They are recovering an incredible amount of material.
Oh,
I kept wondering about their process, but it looks like they might literally have to strip down sections of the boat to get to everything.
I cannot be sure. I do not really understand how they handle crime scenes.
But here is the promising part of all this. We actually have contacts on the ground sending us exclusive footage so we can watch these federal agents as they step onto the deck. They are boarding the vessel and removing heavy boxes,
Hauling away item after item, sealing them in evidence bags, which is critical.
Because once items go into those official bags,
it signals real importance. They are carefully protecting the chain of custody.
that must give you some peace of mind.
Knowing United States investigators are uncovering clues that Bahamian police might have missed.
Exactly. I am really praying for that.
I just hope both jurisdictions cooperate now that the vessel is back in the United States.
They need to fully share whatever local intelligence they gathered with the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
Absolutely, especially regarding that dinghy, because Bahamian authorities still have physical hold of it.
Yes, they held on to that dinghy. To me, that felt very suspicious.
I am not sure, but at one stage, things got strange. To be completely honest, when I was down in the Bahamas and met your granddaughter Carly and her boyfriend Steve out there, the very first thing they told me was that local police offered to let them take the dinghy, but they had absolutely nowhere to store it. They did not even have transportation, no way to move it, and absolutely no idea what they should do. Yet that was the initial offer, according to Carly and Steve. Then, a bit later,
When Carly and Steve actually went back to ask about the dinghy, local police had completely changed their minds and refused to release it.
I figured they would just let Carly use the boat to scout the local shorelines and do some searching.
Not that she would actually export it back home to the United States.
I'd never expected that anyway. The whole thing was highly unusual. They didn't seem to care how we'd use it. They just said, "Go ahead, take it." It was basically their way of saying, it is useless, just taking up space in our impound yard.
Strange. It really is.
There are so many people, and I am sure you have seen this yourself.
Local residents, folks who are deeply committed to finding justice and bringing Lynette home.
I wondered how that has hit you, because so many of them ask me to tell you.
Please send Lynette's family, her mother and daughter, all of our love. They are in our thoughts constantly, and I truly need to express my deepest gratitude to everyone. Honestly, I do not believe I would survive this nightmare without the incredible support of so many people helping out everywhere. I have received anonymous phone calls, messages and emails from complete strangers I have never met. People I do not even know, sending such deeply heartfelt words.
Old friends of my daughter, all the way back from school.
Even her high school classmates have been reaching out to me. So it is truly incredible how many lives this case has.
I hesitate to use the word inspired because that feels wrong, but how deeply it has touched and affected everyone. Yes, absolutely. And then there are the locals in the Bahamas, so many of the islanders we speak with on a regular basis.
And when I say regular, I literally mean all day long, every single day. We are constantly communicating with people from the Bahamas.
Individuals tied to the islands, charter boat captains sailing back and forth, and they all ask, how can we help?
Just tell me. We will solve this mystery. We are going to stand by this family.
That has to be incredibly comforting and heartwarming. It truly is.
Words cannot express how comforting that support feels.
The way it lifts me up and the strength it gives me.
It has been such a long, grueling stretch. We are at what, about 6 weeks now?
Yet the pain feels entirely fresh. Yes, you are entering the 6th week of this nightmare, and
for the people watching from a distance, it is easy to lose track, but you live this every second, every single day.
And I can only imagine
From all my years of investigative work, interviewing families in your exact position, it has to be an incredibly isolating experience. The quiet unknown. Not knowing is, yes, it is deeply lonely. My heart is shattered. It really is.
Well, I felt relieved that finding the vessel named Soulmate, the ocean intercept, and the impounding at the Coast Guard station all happened on Mother's Day.
You absolutely deserved a small glimmer of hope, however tiny, a brief moment of comfort on that painful day.
And on that subject, I brought this up in a previous episode,
where I noted, if Brian wants everyone to believe his bizarre story,
if he wants us to accept his truth, then as a supposed victim of this tragedy, you would think he would want to reach out and share details with the family.
Has Brian Hooker contacted you at all?
I have heard nothing since the 6th. Carly has received nothing. Neither has Lynette's father.
Absolutely no one in our family.
Not my son, none of us have heard from him.
Just to clarify, Brian has been Carly's stepfather since she was about 3 years old?
Is that correct? Yeah, that is right. Exactly. So this was not some distant, detached relationship. He was basically a father to her.
Exactly. He was the only real father figure she had.
Yeah. And he has had absolutely zero contact with her since the day he claimed her mother just vanished.
And she described his delivery as incredibly cold and detached.
Remember, she only learned this from a cold voicemail, not an actual conversation.
Right, but did they ever actually speak directly on a phone call after that?
I believe they had one brief conversation, but that was literally the only time.
After that, he made absolutely zero effort to contact anyone else.
My guess is his defense attorney advised him to remain completely silent.
But as I always say, if he has nothing to hide, why refuse to talk to us?
Think about it. This is supposed to be a devastating family tragedy. If his story is genuine and he is innocent, he is a victim here too.
You would think he would want to surround himself with his family.
Mourning together, planning a memorial service, or preparing a funeral. But there was nothing. Nothing. In my field and in the legal world.
That is what we call consciousness of guilt.
Right.
I'm sure I don't have to explain that to you.
No, of course not. You can practically feel the guilt.
Exactly. So how do you interpret Brian's behavior after the disappearance?
How he basically went off the grid. Honestly, I have no clue where he is hiding right now.
I figured since he was sailing his boat back to the Florida coast, he might still be down there.
But nobody knows if he is hiding in California, lying low in Michigan, or still down in Florida.
I have heard reports pointing to all three.
I just do not understand why he is being so secretive.
If he had nothing to do with it, you would expect him to help us find her, instead of just staying off the grid like this. Apparently, there were some brief sightings of him up in Michigan. Exactly.
And that is exactly where he retained his defense attorney. In Michigan, right.
Then he started telling everyone that he was traveling to Sacramento to visit his sick mother.
Which is also where his sister lives.
The exact same sister who immediately flew to the Bahamas to sit with him.
On the porch of the Conch Inn for 2 days right after Lynette disappeared.
And neither of them was actually out searching for Lynette. Correct.
Then, in a text message he sent me on the 6th, he claimed he was retrieving the dinghy,
saying his sister and brother-in-law were arriving the very next day. And only after that was he planning to give the Coast Guard 2 days to find Lynette, and only then would he go look for her.
And I kept wondering, why wait and give the Coast Guard 2 days?
Exactly. Why wasn't his sister helping with the search? Why didn't he immediately call around to charter a rescue boat? Then his arrest happened, completely cutting off any moves he could make.
Yet the moment they released him, he fled immediately, despite his public promises that he would stay put.
Looking at the facts, none of this makes sense.
Yes, the moment he walked free at 8 o'clock at night,
was rushing to secure an emergency passport the very next morning to escape.
Meanwhile,
He is actively booking interviews with 3 major television networks.
Huge national networks.
So it was a highly calculated PR campaign to blast his narrative across the globe, repeatedly swearing that he would never abandon the Bahamas. He swore he'd never leave without her, claiming it would take a higher power.
I have no idea what kind of divine authority he meant to make him abandon Lynette. But behind closed doors, he already had a plane ticket lined up. He had that ticket bought. He was fully prepared to run, and yet, well, who knows?
Regardless of the ticket details, he was rushing to get that urgent travel document to flee, barely 24 hours after those major interviews.
Right. That hardly sounds like a deeply devoted partner.
Another key detail, Darlene, is what he told one of the search and rescue coordinators,
who had spent hours hunting for Lynette while being fed false details. Think about it.
He explicitly told the rescue crews that she was wearing nothing but a black 2-piece bikini.
He completely failed to mention her navy blue headscarf or the aquamarine swimsuit cover-up.
Not a single word.
Exactly. He never described her dry bag, nor did he mention she was carrying a black fanny pack.
No, absolutely nothing. So he effectively sent the search teams on a blind, useless hunt. And local authorities are absolutely furious about that.
and get this, he actually asked them where he could rent a boat to assist with the search.
So the emergency coordinator provided him with the phone number to arrange a boat rental. But as you might expect, when the search team followed up with the rental contact, they said he never even called. That matches what I heard.
I just hope the investigators find some of her personal items on that boat.
Assuming those items ever made it on board.
That alone would strongly suggest a very different scenario took place than his official story.
Or locating Lynette.
And discovering her body on some distant shoreline would blow his entire narrative apart.
So, do you have your own working theory of what really took place?
What actually happened that night?
During our conversation, he claimed they spent the entire day heavily drinking.
He said that when she exited the boat, she started swimming straight for the shoreline. We have heard several offshore versions, but the story he gave me was about the beach. He also claimed he threw a flotation device into the water for her.
He had no idea if she reached it, and shortly after, he lost sight of her.
Did he ever say whether he shouted to her and got a response?
No, he left that out.
And he didn't bring up the anchor or the rope left inside the boat at all.
But the only detail he actually shared was that he fired 2 flares from the dinghy because that was all he had on him.
Meaning those were his only shots. But down the road, I learned there were 2 flares indeed, but only one had been shot.
So that detail immediately raised a red flag. It just did not add up.
Honestly, I do not think I had ever heard that specific detail before.
So he explicitly told you he fired 2 flares, yet the physical evidence showed only one was used.
Exactly.
Did he say whether one was still sitting in the chamber?
As in, there was still a live round in the flare gun?
I do not really know how those flare guns operate, but he insisted he fired it twice. He claimed several boats passed by, and he screamed for help, but none of them stopped.
And this was out in the pitch black.
So he claims these vessels passed him by in the dark.
Yes, and then he claimed everything was completely blacked out.
He said the water was empty because of the Easter holiday weekend, so nobody was out boating.
Which is why he could not flag anyone down. He claimed that once he hit land, he pounded on the doors of 2 houses, but nobody answered.
At least, that was the initial version of events I got.
My understanding was he flagged down a vehicle on the road to tell them he needed urgent help. Told him his wife vanished, but the driver allegedly just shut the door and sped away.
And that is when he finally wound up at the marina.
So the specific account he gave me seems to have a lot of different branching details compared to what others heard.
So he claimed he was banging on doors on Luber's quarters and found absolutely nobody home?
Well, I am not entirely sure if it was Lubber's quarters.
No, This would have been after he drifted to Marsh Harbor.
He claimed he was knocking on doors in Marsh Harbor and got absolutely no response?
Exactly. Complete silence.
And he actually claimed he stopped a car with a driver sitting right inside.
Yes, told him his wife was lost, and the driver just ignored him and drove away?
Yes. And right after that, he hit the marina.
Where the security guard finally got the authorities involved. But yes, that was his narrative.
Because I believe he told Blaine and his wife during that long taped conversation.
That massive hour-long brain dump that they only recorded because there was just too much. Detail flooding in for them to possibly write down in real time. But quickly, they began to realize how suspicious his story actually sounded.
He claimed he scrambled through thick, jagged brush to make it to that marina.
Well, he told me he had to cross the jagged shoreline ground, that it was incredibly sharp on his feet, and that he pushed through the brush to knock on those doors.
But as he repeatedly stressed, since it was Easter weekend, the entire area was deserted.
The ground was sharp on his feet? Right. Did he mention if he was barefoot?
He did not specify, but he kept repeating that the ground was sharp on his feet.
Right, because when the rescue team finally reached him that morning,
they noted he was just wearing blue slides.
Honestly, he couldn't have been thinking very clearly wearing thin blue slides.
You would think not.
Incredible. So I have heard different pieces of this story, and they keep shifting from the original version.
So I am retracing his steps again. He claims he reached a road and spotted a passing vehicle, which reportedly stopped, heard his plea, and then drove off.
Just drove off. Imagine a man supposedly soaking wet, just escaped from being marooned on a tiny dinghy in rough, towering waves.
And the driver simply did not care. He just drove away. And then, instead of staying on the road, he heads into the thick brush toward the marina. How would he even know?
He specifically told me he had to push through heavy brush to reach the marina.
But also that he knocked on the doors of 2 houses with no response.
And flagged down a car to report his wife missing, only for the driver to speed away.
I still don't understand going through the brush if he was already on a road.
If he was on a paved road with houses and passing vehicles.
Why on earth would he abandon the road to bushwhack through that dense, punishing undergrowth he described?
Well, according to the version he told me, he reached the road by the harbor, flagged down the car, and then headed straight for the docks.
So you would assume the marina was connected to that same road, but who knows?
It is just. I suppose he is claiming he pushed through the brutal brush despite the sharp pain in his feet, whatever caused that, before finally hitting the road that led to the docks.
Yes, exactly. That is it.
Well, that makes a bit more sense, because if he was already on a road with houses and passing traffic,
why in the world would he start bushwhacking after that point?
But this story about sharp pain in his feet, I am just not buying it.
Even if the rocks were sharp,
and you could not wear slides, keeping them on still seems safer than walking barefoot on jagged stones.
But that is a fascinating detail. If this ever goes to a grand jury and a trial, it will definitely come up. The entire timeline of his movements that he described to you will be scrutinized.
Well, I really could not challenge him on it since I am completely unfamiliar with the area.
Where those homes actually sat.
Relative to the harbor, I have no idea, but he claimed he approached 2 of them and knocked. Yet, when investigators hit him with all these questions,
He only answered 4 out of roughly 94.
Honestly, I live on a lake, and during the summer, if you are in trouble on the water, day or night, and you wave your arms for assistance, someone immediately comes over to help.
it is an unwritten law on the water, just what people do.
I have seen it myself out here for 40 or 50 years.
So his claim that 2 boats passed by without stopping struck me as highly unusual.
So, you wanted to know my theory on what went down.
I dread to think it, but my gut says they made it back to the boat.
They probably carried on with their night, maybe pouring themselves a few more drinks.
I think a heated argument broke out between them.
And from there, he chose to strangle her, leaving zero evidence behind, unless she fell and cracked her skull open or something horrific like that. Afterwards, he had hours of uninterrupted time to do
Whatever he deemed best to hide my daughter's body.
which is why finding her means absolutely everything to me. We are going to find her. I feel it in my bones.
With the sheer amount of work Lindsay and I poured into this case,
The endless research, the tiny details we have painstakingly unearthed, I know we are going to find her.
I really do believe that. An indictment is coming, and your theory is absolutely on the money.
Let me offer this crucial caveat.
He has not been charged or arrested in the United States. He remains innocent until proven guilty in court. He has not been charged, but I truly believe he is a liar, a filthy, deceptive liar.
The endless web of lies he spun. The absolute nightmare he inflicted on you, Carly, and everyone who loves Lynette. And God, so many people do.
Even for strangers who never had the chance to know her.
The torment he has caused for everyone actively searching to bring her home.
And for those doing everything possible to solve this tragedy. Because make no mistake, it is a crime. He is honestly one of the most despicable men to ever walk this earth. He has let us down completely. We explicitly told him his job was to protect her, and he failed her in every single way. Man, did he ever fail her. But look, there is still so much to anticipate moving forward.
I do not believe he is nearly as clever as he thinks. He could hide his corporate work truck for a while, sure, until AT&T caught and fired him.
He probably thinks he customized his boat with clever tech and knows exactly how to hide his GPS tracks. Sure, you can cover your tracks in real time. You can try to scramble your current data, but you cannot erase the digital footprint you left in the past. Exactly.
All that metadata is secured in the cloud, completely out of your reach now.
So, I honestly believe Brian thinks he is a mastermind, but he is playing checkers while the feds play grandmaster chess.
God, I hope you are right.
Because I desperately need answers, especially after seeing the evidence recovered from that boat.
Yeah, I think he is an absolute fool who had no idea how massive of a digital trail his actions were leaving behind.
No matter what those actions were. And again, to be clear, he has not faced charges. For legal reasons, I must repeat that he has not been officially charged with any crime.
But I always add one little warning. Tick-tock, Brian Hooker.
Tick-tock, indeed. Tick-tock.
I promise you, justice is coming. In the meantime, what have you and your husband been up to? The last time we spoke, you were down in Florida, but I know you have relocated since then. Yeah, we are still up here in Michigan. Honestly, we are just trying to get through each day. I barely sleep these days. I just seem to keep waking up in the dead of night.
And I just lie there, staring, thinking, and thinking.
I just need some answers.
I really just need closure. We started counseling because I cannot comprehend how anyone could do something like this.
Pardon me.
I am down to one working phone, and these alarms keep popping up. That is completely fine. No worries. Honestly, seeking counseling is such a good step for you.
It is a club that literally nobody ever wants to join.
Few people truly understand it. Today was therapy, so emotions are running very high. I literally just got back, so you can probably hear it in my voice. First, you need to give yourself some grace. And please remember that even if you cannot see them, hundreds of total strangers have you in their thoughts and prayers. Daily messages keep coming in, asking me to pass along their love and their prayers, telling Lynette's mother and daughter that we are all ready to help in any way possible. They are absolutely out there supporting you, and they are watching this right now.
My granddaughter has shown so much courage.
I am not nearly as strong as she is. This is incredibly hard. That is why I rarely do these podcasts. It is just too painful.
But I am glad Carly does, because it keeps the pressure on and keeps people searching for answers.
If anyone knows anything at all,
Or if they spotted Brian or Lynette, please contact the Coast Guard or reach out to you, Ashley.
It is working. The Coast Guard confirmed they have received some highly promising tips.
They are following those leads. And investigators are examining the boat right now.
So I'm praying some real answers come out of this.
I am so glad. Our viewers have been truly incredible. Email dropdeadseriousinfo@gmail.com, and if you prefer keeping it private, I understand.
You can easily download the CGIS Tips app. It is completely anonymous, and they are incredibly grateful.
Like you said, they have been receiving some solid leads too.
Getting this story out is vital, especially since we have usually over 150,000 people watching these cases, which means an incredible crowd of people who can help solve this crime.
In the meantime, how is Carly holding up? She is still so young, only in her 20s.
to me, she is still a child. She has been on leave, but she returns this Friday.
She is praying that goes smoothly. But we have our good and bad days.
We will cry, and then we will share memories together.
So, yeah.
Have you two managed to reconnect at all since you made the trip up to Michigan?
Yes, we got dinner together to celebrate her birthday, and honestly, I still talk to her almost every single day.
We text constantly, so yeah.
It matters. She desperately needs that support right now. Being an only child, she has no one else to really lean on, so there is that.
I believe she was keeping in touch with Brian's daughter, Rosie, but for whatever reason, that line of communication has gone completely cold. At least she still has Steve and me, along with her grandmother and father, keeping those connections alive.
Meanwhile, Brian and his family have completely closed ranks and shut everyone out.
They just vanished. His mother is actually a lovely woman, though I hear she has been ill. We met once, but silence since.
I never met his sister, though. I did meet his brother and a nephew, but they live in California, halfway across the country from Michigan or Florida.
So my contact with them was pretty limited.
She plays a highly suspicious role here, allegedly coordinating with that lawyer for Brian down in Nassau, in the Bahamas.
I can't prove that yet.
But whispers suggest she was key to securing that specific defense attorney for Brian.
Nothing illegal about that.
Entirely within her rights. But executing those moves demands major outside assistance, like getting paperwork filed and clearing coordinates while you are locked up in a jail cell.
That kind of loyalty usually comes from a close relative.
Can I prove it was her? No.
But she was definitely there. That is the million-dollar question. Honestly, that Apple Watch we spotted on Lynette's wrist at the Abaco Inn is the key. Right when she was taking photos by the pool, that is a massive piece of evidence. We know Lynette had a strict habit of removing that smartwatch. By the middle of the evening,
the battery was notoriously weak and simply could not hold a charge for long.
Exactly. Carly confirmed that Lynette always took it off right around dinner time to place it back on its charger.
Exactly. And if your working theory matches mine, which it absolutely does,
That Brian did something unthinkable to her aboard that boat, soulmate.
He likely had no idea she had already taken the Apple Watch off, leaving it right there on the vessel. Actively pinging, tracking GPS data to and from the Abaco Inn. Honestly, that could be the ultimate nail in his coffin.
or that distinctive L necklace.
That was the single piece of jewelry Lynette ever wore besides her actual wedding band.
Carly has custody of that initial necklace now, and it was recovered back on the boat.
If we can ever secure that security footage from the Abaco Inn, we should be able to verify both of those details.
Let us hope so. Though we have to remember, some of those surveillance cameras are positioned pretty far back. For example,
I have analyzed the angles of the cameras aiming at the dock where they parked their dinghy. From that extreme distance, catching a tiny necklace on a person is highly unlikely.
the lens is mounted across the street, high up on a residential home.
Understood.
But there were cameras. Surveillance covered both the bar area and the pool.
Judging by the sheer distance, I cannot be completely certain, but those pool security cameras were likely positioned too far away to clearly capture something as small and delicate as a necklace.
However, if she really was sitting at the bar, as one of our key witnesses claimed at the time, according to them, she and Brian were sitting together right at the north end of the bar.
That is a detail even the bartender failed to recall.
He only remembered Brian walking up right after they arrived, ordering
2 Cuba Libres to bring to the pool, and later returning shirtless to grab another round for the pool.
Yet, he never mentioned them actually sitting down at the bar.
A completely different witness spotted them there, claiming she was later shown
Security footage by the Royal Bahamian Police inside the establishment, confirming that those two were indeed the couple.
She noted he wore a tan or gray shirt.
Made of a heavy sailing or fisherman fabric.
Now,
I have to wonder if that footage was from another day entirely. The shirt he wore while crossing the street looked like a completely different material.
In reality, it is almost impossible to tell.
This is the core of the mystery.
The bartender insists under oath he saw him in blue and white stripes.
meanwhile, the person who snapped that final photo of him crossing the road placed him and Lynette right at the end of the bar.
Investigators showed her the surveillance tape recovered from the 4th.
And she agreed.
That is definitely him in the solid, unpatterned gray shirt.
Look, it is not uncommon to pack a spare shirt in a dry bag when spending all day on a dinghy getting splashed by waves.
It makes sense to keep a fresh change of clothes handy.
So that part aligns. We know he shed his shirt at one point. Perhaps he simply slipped on a clean, dry shirt to replace the damp, sweaty one he had been wearing all afternoon.
It remains a deeply frustrating puzzle, but I believe that at some point,
once that Abaco Inn footage is finally released, this specific contradiction might be resolved.
Until then, we are actively investigating every single lead.
Darlene, what are you holding out hope for?
Over the next few weeks,
My absolute priority right now is finding Lynette.
Above anything else.
Once she is found, I believe the physical evidence will speak for itself.
if Brian happens to be watching this, is there anything you want to say?
My answer to that question is always the same.
There is honestly not a single thing left that I want to say directly to Brian.
The only feeling I have is profound disappointment,
Along with the knowledge that he stole something precious from me, treating her with absolutely zero respect. So no, I have zero desire to speak with him ever again. I believe everything that Carly and I have already made public is enough. He knows how we feel. I truly understand.
Darlene, I appreciate you talking to me. Honestly, my heart goes out to you. Every single time I text you, I keep hoping it brings you some small shred of resolution, just a little comfort. Though I know there is very little peace to be found lately.
No, there is no comfort. Honestly, it might get even harder once we finally locate her.
Reality is brutal.
But living with this complete unknown is just agonizing.
Have you started making any plans for a memorial or a service yet? I have only just begun to consider it.
it is something that has to happen, I know.
I have been quietly weighing where we should hold it.
A place where Carly, myself, and everyone who loved her can gather.
She left a huge impact in Grand Rapids, but also right here in the Irish hills of Onstead. So, figuring out the right spot is incredibly difficult. I know, it is a heavy decision when you are still searching for answers.
I understand. Darlene, thank you for being so open and speaking with me.
Please know we are sending you endless support, and we are right here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone. There are just so many wonderful people. I cannot even begin to thank them all. But I hear you today.
I want to express my deepest gratitude to Darlene Hamlet.
Now, if you happen to be in the Bahamas, specifically around the Abacos,
Marsh Harbor,
and you ran into a frantic man walking the road around 4 in the morning, begging for help because his wife was missing. Please, step forward.
We need your help. I truly doubt you exist. I suspect that entire story is a fabrication, but if you are real, contact me. I want to know exactly what he was wearing.
What he had with him, and the color of his shirt.
The exact color of his dry bag, and his precise words to you. Again, if you know anyone who mentioned a strange encounter with a man in Marsh Harbor in the Bahamas, at 4 in the morning on Sunday, April 5th, which was Easter morning. All of these claims he made supposedly started the night before, around 7:45 in the evening. He supposedly drifted all night long until washing up at 4 a.m. in Marsh Harbor. Again, he claims he came ashore on the eastern side, dragging himself through those thick briar patches. And now, as we learn, along public roads. Supposedly, he pounded on doors and stopped a motorist who simply abandoned him right there. Let me tell you, the Bahamian people are incredibly warm and helpful. Throughout our entire search, folks were always eager to offer their assistance. If someone was truly in danger, they would never just speed away from you. But I want to find out who you are. Or if anyone knows a driver who recalled that Easter morning encounter at 4 a.m. Cruising the coastal roads of eastern Marsh Harbor. Please, we need to speak with you. dropdeadseriousinfo@gmail.com. Again, dropdeadseriousinfo@gmail.com. And honestly, if you do not want to confide in me because I am just a podcaster, I get it. If you prefer going to the authorities while keeping your identity completely hidden, you can do that instead. Simply download their app, CGIS Tips, where you can submit anonymous reports and prove you actually exist. But let me be blunt. I do not believe this man even exists. I will not be losing sleep waiting for an inbox notification tonight. I do not buy a word of Brian's story, neither do the United States Coast Guard investigators. Which explains why the soulmate is now a crime scene. Thank you all so much for tuning in to today's episode. Make sure to subscribe. Whether you are listening or watching, please tap that subscribe button. It makes a huge difference. We operate as a fully independent podcast. So every single like, share, and subscription keeps us going. If you can, please consider joining our membership. We would love to have you. Our community is growing into a fantastic, tight-knit group. Thanks once more. I truly appreciate it. Remember, the truth is not just serious, it is drop-dead serious.